And welcome. Thank you, Ian, so much. Thank you for preparing this lecture for us, and thank you for taking time for our artists here at the Thrive Art Colony that is dealing with the specific subject of air pollution in Serbia and on the Balkans. And I'm so happy to welcome you to just hear a lecture and hear the story about storytelling for the future, as it is so important in the times that we are living in. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you. Good to be with you. We have lost some time for technical reasons. I guess I have half an hour, so I will, I compress it. There are lots of slides. I mean, you can have the slides if you want, but yeah. So let me start right away, and I just have to excuse the first picture in this transformation. Something happened, so actually should be reading storytelling for the future. So and now let me see how I can go on with. Wonderful, it works. So just very, very quickly, my background, I'm an urban researcher, and I've been studying urban innovation the last 20 years, and I've come in touch with about 40 cities on 4 continents. And the thing that I'm doing now is about studying digital platforms and how the platformization can be bent towards a more sustainable and democratic and locally sensitive direction. So that's my research field, so that's my background. However, the reason why storytelling is because there's something I learned in the last 20 years, and I thought I'll start right with my 20 years of experience, just one slide, and the rest of the lecture doesn't matter anymore. So this is the core message of the whole thing here, and so it will just take me 2 minutes. So what did I learn in the last 20 years? Because I was studying, the most innovative regions of the world, and my question was, what makes them so innovative? And it's 4 things. The 4 things are: first, sorry, I can see that the slides have changed completely. I think, but it doesn't matter. You have to use your imagination to make it right.
For artists, that's not a problem.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's become like an artistic product now. AI generated or something. Anyway, so 4 things. These cities have had a consensus about their local problems. So Vesela and your friends, air pollution, if there's no consensus, if there's no political consensus, then there's no problem. It can be real, it doesn't matter. I mean, the world can be going down the drain, it doesn't matter. If there's no political consensus about the problem, there's no problem. This is very, very important. Second, the agents of change. The strategic alliances in the cities were extremely powerful. And they're not everyone, just a few people come together. There's a little organization here, an NGO here, someone from the government there. They come together and they want to address this problem. And so the agents of change, these strategic alliances are absolutely important. If there are no powerful agents of change, there's no change. Third is storytelling. Now, compelling narratives of the future is something which these extremely successful cities had very, very strongly. They had a very strong story of change, a storyline of change. And today, I mean, we're going to talk about this and not the other, but I just want to contextualize. Storytelling is very important, but it has to be seen within this bigger context. Yeah, and the 4th point is clear goals, a roadmap, and a strategy. So all these cities had, if you have those 4 things, you can be pretty sure that there'll be some transformative change happening there. So, and there's the collective purpose. So this is something that I've also seen, that if you want to have really deep change, there has to be a critical number of people who's, pulling at the same threads. Otherwise, there's no big change. So how to get that critical number of people, that collective purpose, is a real, real challenge. And narratives and storytelling can play a big role here. So that is the essence of the takeaway of today's talk. And now let me see how I can. Oh my God, this is really. Let's see. We need a lot of imagination. Well, so today's topic is compelling future narratives, and So we'll talk a bit about the principles of future thinking and how to pack those imaginaries of the future into stories. So that is the main topic. And let me see. And I'll have to excuse myself here because I'll be jumping lots of slides, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the essence, I'll see to that you get the right slides, and we'll focus on the key messages. This is okay. This is a course that I'm developing right now, which is called Storytelling for the Future. It'll be an online course. So what we're hearing today is little excerpts from this course. So we're going to look into the three very powerful ways of thinking, which is narrative thinking, scientific thinking, and future thinking. And we bring those together and create stories for the future. So this will be by the end of the year, we'll have the course. And if you're interested, of course, you can. Now, the introduction. So we're going to talk. I mean, this won't happen now because we'll skip. Oh, now it's jumping by itself. So here. We'll talk about future thinking, very little science, some principles of storytelling, and at the end I have some cases. I think that'll be important to see. Not getting into theory, but some nice cases. So, the main drivers of human civilization, we know resources, power, knowledge, technology, and all of that. But there are three great domains which I've really realized, and I'm really open for the discussion. And when we discuss this, when we look around, it's all about stories. Now that I'm telling you something is like, we are in this process of telling stories to each other. We are constantly telling stories. It's amazing. We are swimming in stories all the time. Science. We just have to look around. Like everything around us is science. Electricity, our cell phones, computers. Now that we're talking over StreamYard, this is all technology. We are shaped by technology. And the third thing is, and this is something really interesting, and I've been dealing with future planning, strategic planning for a long time. But what really strikes me now is that consciously, we don't think about the future consciously. We don't say, look, now I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to talk to Vesela and her friends in Serbia because of something. I don't think about that. But there's still some kind of a future notion in there. Maybe, there'll be an exchange. Maybe I can go to Serbia at some point. Maybe a project will come up. Maybe I will influence someone to do something great. So there's some element of future in almost everything that we do, and we don't do it consciously. This is a very interesting thing. And if we come back to, like, on a personal level, the decisions that we make every day, like hundreds of decisions, it's somehow about the future. Am I going to eat something good? Is it for my health? I'm going to go to meet some friends. It's always something. The future kind of always resonates in almost every action. That's really surprising. And then when we make a decision, and it's a lot about decision making. When we make a decision, we want to have some kind of a rational basis for the decision. Some fact-based thing, and even if it's astrology, your friend, astrologer friend Vesela, I'm sure she sees it as somehow as a science. All my astrology friends tell me astrology is a science. So there's some kind of a rational basis there. So there's something there in our brain. We want to make decisions based on some evidence basing, not just completely hocus pocus. And the third thing is we put it all together in some kind of a narrative, so that it's understandable, it's communicable, and that's where the story thing comes in. So I really think, and I would really, we would love to discuss this with you if you see it in the same way, that these three things really, really shape our lives every day. It's the stories, it's science and technology, and our imaginaries of the future. Now, let's talk about global challenges, because this is something that you are totally into. The key drivers of change, we know this is technological disruptions, it's climate crisis. We have huge geopolitical shifts, which has really come in after the rise of China, especially uneven growth, urbanism, demographic shifts, and this creates all these social changes, cultural changes, political changes, and so on. So this is like reality. Now, if we think about our perceptions of the global threats, it becomes very, very different. Like yesterday, I had a discussion with my diplomatic friends here. Everyone had a different notion of these global threats. So we have our imaginations of what are the global threats. They can be real or they can be unreal. Now, this connection between reality and fiction becomes an incredibly important thing to be aware of. And even if we are like uh, talking about something which is not real, you can use it. You can use fiction as a as a as a catalyst, maybe, to do some changes. So we are constantly moving between fiction and reality. This is something really important to understand. Now, the question is, what do you think about the future? I mean, I would have loved to do this, but now there's no time. But maybe in the discussion phase we can do this. And I'll just jump into the next chapter, which is about future thinking. So actually, at this point, I wanted to know, what do you think about the future? But Vasila, can we do this still? This would be actually interesting. Maybe one comment. What do you think
Yeah,
of the someone?
totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, would anyone want to comment on what do you think
yeah.
about the future? And like maybe you want to.
Like about the global threat. So when you think about the future, what comes to your mind?
About global, like what we talked about, global geopolitics, the rise of China, Russia, the whole
Yeah,
bloc.
yeah. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Nisam se bavila tom temom, stvarno ne znam šta bih rekla. Još... Sorry.
Yeah, but please, if you want to.
No, as I see it, right now, I think it's going to be much worse than now.
So,
The culminate, and after the things go get clearer and easier.
do you hear or not?
Not too well. Maybe if
Yeah.
you
So here one of my artists, Natasha, is saying that she thinks it's gonna be much more worse, and everything will culminate in like together and like like a bubbling stew. Yeah. Yeah. This is.
sorry.
But after, she thinks it's gonna be much like there will be a point of culmination, then it will be like coming down everything.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting. Because I've been asking this question to many people.
The worst.
Sorry, I'm just trying to because there is a little lag.
I would like to tell an answer to Natasha. It will not be better until we make it better. So maybe what could we do?
Yeah. You hear, huh?
Yes,
You hear?
you heard that. Yes.
Yeah, you heard him because he was very vocal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lazar. Lazar is here with us.
Yeah.
Maybe if we, all of us, return to some, may I say, healthy village life, but in the real way, as you told yesterday, maybe that would be better. I don't know,
Do you hear?
like people used to live maybe 100 years ago, but if we...
Lazar is saying that like if we go back to the village life and we start living as we used to live 100 years ago, maybe it will be better. Yeah. Yeah, like smaller communities and yeah.
They say if you want to destroy some nation, first destroy their village people, because village people are always independent and they have their own food, they have their own life. They don't matter about politics or I don't know, and living.
Do you hear?
Yeah.
That's not what I
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, it's like a saying that you first destroy, if you want to destroy a nation, you first destroy its villagers, because villagers are the most independent of the nation people, yeah?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And they produce the food. They produce the food in the trees.
Yeah, they produce the food, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, but that's what I said.
Yeah.
Ali ne mislim ti, nego ono su selo opustošeno, to sam...
Da.
Svi.
Oni koji su imali nešto, misliš da...
But I think we continue and then we go into the
Yeah, we
bigger.
continue. This is because this is what is happening in the world now. What is happening in that small room, our imaginations is creating either our reality or so this is perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So we go back to the lecture and then we continue after the next.
Yeah. Okay, so future thinking. Now, it's really a remarkable thing that every millisecond we are leaving the past behind and we are moving into the future, and we have absolutely no clue about the future. We can't see the future. No one has been into the future and is coming in, but we have developed all kinds of methods to look into the future, including astrology and all the new methods of looking into the future. So this is an incredibly philosophical thing. Like even when we are like crossing the street, we don't know what's on the other side of the street, what's going to happen on the other side of the street. And this is happening constantly in our life. And there's a wonderful saying which says that the future is really important because we are going to spend the rest of our lives in the future. So that's really, and this is a very philosophically interesting thing, but we can we can go on discussing about that. And we have mentioned this, that we are constantly referring somehow to the future, consciously, unconsciously, or below consciousness. And divination, because you have an astrologer in the realm, this is an incredibly, incredibly old thing. For thousands and thousands of years, this has been very, very important. So people have been really wanting to understand the future and how can we make decisions about the future. And I have this picture of these birds, auguri, reading omens of the actions of birds. Rome, Greece, all these countries really seriously did this. I Ching is it's a more impersonal kind of thing. So I loved I Ching, by the way. Really, really fascinating things happen there. So we can talk a lot about this. I find this a very fascinating thing. But essentially what we are doing is something like what this little boat is saying. Where is the current carrying me? And can I change my course somehow or not? Right? This is essentially our interest in the future. And this is something completely new. I'm reading this absolutely amazing book. Oh no, I haven't got it here now. Nature. Like all species, from single-celled organisms to jellyfish, penguins, jaguars, and humans, have had a remarkable capacity of future thinking. And let me just go into one little unicellular organism called Escherichia coli. It's 0.02 millimeter. It's really, really small. We have millions of them in our guts, by the way. And we make insulin out of them. So it's a very important kind of microorganism. And they have been pretty successful because it's been around for 100 million years. And let's see what kind of future thinking it's been doing. Oh my God, this is all. Okay, but the most important thing you can read, its genetic material gives it a very, very good picture of its goal, of its future. Exactly where it should go. Second, it's continuously sensing and assessing its surroundings with those tentacles, and there's something like 10,000 things that it can measure. Its temperature, is it certain molecules that are around? Is it sugar? That it's constantly looking for sugar, by the way, and break down the sugar. So this whole information exchange program between sensing and the genetic material is happening constantly at the same time. I know a couple of thousand things simultaneously. And according to that, it's acting. And this is something, and this genetic, and the goal is very, very clear. It wants to survive and it wants to reproduce in a safe place. Survive, reproduce in a very safe place. This is what this little thing is constantly doing. And what beats me absolutely is that our bodies have trillions of these cells, and they're collaborating on a spectacular level. We would not be sitting here talking via a StreamYard if our cells did not have an absolute collective purpose of doing it. This is a absolutely remarkable thing, and this is something we can really, really learn from our bodies. Now, to make it abstract, what is the cell? What is this little thing doing? And what we are doing in future thing is essentially the same. What we're trying to do is the zone of calm. That's the center. Okay, this is now, and that's the future. Like, it's called the cone of the future. It's a very famous thing. You can use it in many things like scenario technique and so on. You probably know this cone of the future. So this green part is where it wants to be, where we want to be, the zone of calm. What we're trying to avoid is the zone of anxiety. That's where things, the air pollution and we are getting sick. That's an anxiety phase. And we want to go back to the zone of calm. Essentially, it's this. And the zone of calamities, fatalism, like if there's a meteorite that's going to hit us, there is a certain possibility, but we don't care about that. That doesn't matter. It's just this, it has to be closer. The danger has to be closer to really respond to it. And a slightly different version of it is the domains of preference. Where do we prefer to be? Need not necessarily be right at the center. It can be a bit outside. So that's the change that we want sometimes. And explicitly the space we don't want to be. You can clearly define we don't want to be in a place where air pollution is like, is exacerbating, it's getting worse. So we don't want to be there. This is a very, very clear thing. We can put it down, we can write it down. And this is the beginning of future thinking. And this is essentially what the Escherichia coli does. It wants to be somewhere, it doesn't want to be somewhere. And to make it even more abstract, and this is, by the way, the key diagram of this whole lecture. This is future thinking. 1, 2, and 3. The first thing is clarifying the goals. Just like the Escherichia coli, it's very, very clear where it has to go to. This is absolutely necessary. If you don't have a goal, if you don't have you need a single priority. If you don't have that, there's no direction. So clarify the goal. And the second is assess likely futures. And this is where all the trend hunting, what's going on, trend research, future research, forecasting, scenario technique, all these things. We're trying to sense our world and what's going on and where are the forces acting, what are the threats and what are the opportunities. Threats and opportunities is assessed at number 2. That's the thing. And the third is do something. Action. And action means also intervention. Like what you're doing with your project is you're intervening in a certain regime. If you're showing, if you continue like this is going to be the future and we don't want to be there. It's incredibly simple. And this is the cycle that is constantly happening. You have your goal, you're assessing constantly what's going on, and then you do something. You intervene, you act upon that, and this is a continuous process. The most essential diagram. And even though we may do it unconsciously, but if you bring it down on the table and make it conscious, it really changes things. We can discuss this then later. Now, where does storytelling come in? Storytelling is at the point of clarifying the goals. This is where you tell a certain story of the future. A goal can be an abstract goal. You put it down in bullet points or numbers. It has no effect on people. It has to be some kind of a narrative. And this is what is storytelling for the future about. And the second one is, it's the foresight, and that's the scientific part. And now I just want to very briefly show like the 2 principal orientations in future thinking. One is making predictions. That's what, Deloitte and all these consultancy companies do this all the time by studying the past patterns and currents. You project certain ideas or situations into the future. So learning from the past, projecting into the future. This is what is about predictions. And the second one is shaping the future, which your friend just mentioned. Like if you want to have peace or if you want to have a better world, we have to do something about it. Otherwise, it's not going to come by itself. So shaping the future is a strong aspect of future thinking and prediction. So usually it's these 2 things that interplay with each other to have a good effect. So I will jump this. Futures literacy, by the way, a very, very interesting UNESCO, but I'll jump this. I will. Maybe this. The future is a conceptual space where we project our hopes and concerns. Our ability to anticipate future outcomes tends to shape our choices, our strategies, and our decisions. So we can't see the lower part. So this is like, so future can be seen as a conceptual space where we're projecting all kinds of things. And they can be bad and they can be good. They can have a good effect on us. They can have a bad effect on us. But we want to have a good effect on us. So this is like to see the future as a space, as a conceptual space. Yes, I mentioned this forecasting, anticipation. These are all the techniques that there is that you can. The science part, I think I'll completely jump. Maybe just one thing that, while stories is about, don't have to be fact based, they're emotional. Science is fact based. It describes truths, observations, experience, evidence based methods. It creates scientific knowledge. It has to be verifiable. It has to be testable. So that's a very, very important thing, because if we don't have that, then the whole thing becomes really very yeah. So, this is the graphic novel that I'm writing about the origins of science, which I hope will be done also by the end of the year. I can send your friends maybe a link to the whole thing. So,
Yeah, please.
yeah, and the book is called Elements. And what's interesting is that you have these four things in 300 BC. Euclid of Alexandria, a Greek mathematician, wrote this book, which is the most popular book after the Bible, by the way. Very interesting. So he had just four things: definitions, axioms, propositions, and proofs. So when we are talking, this is something we can really learn from this book. When we are talking about something, let's define it. Let's define what is pollution. Let's define, because otherwise, if there's no consensus about the definitions, there's no discussion. This is a very important thing. And then axioms are our assumptions. What have we assumed without asking, without, so there are there are always some assumptions. Let's put it on the table as well. And then let's make propositions. Say, okay, this is what we think is good, our hypothesis. And then the proving thing is more mathematical, but for our So this is a very old. It's 2,300 years old. This has been evolving for a long time. Okay, now we come to storytelling. Now, what is storytelling? A story is a narrative, either true or fictitious. There you go, huh? In prose or verse, designed to interest, instruct, or amuse hearer or readers. This is a very important thing. It has to, amusement is a big thing in storytelling. We have a second definition. A story is a description of something happening that contains some form of sensation or drama. It is, in other words, an explanation of cause and effect that is soaked in emotion. The most important thing about story is emotions. It triggers certain emotions. And it depends on the storyteller which emotions are going to trigger. Now, the thing is, we're always telling stories, but is it a good story or not? That makes the difference. A good story is a story which is, so that's why you learn the principles of storytelling. Yeah, and storytelling is really all over the place, and we're constantly using it, and it's impossible to understand the human world without stories. So some principles of storytelling, I think I will jump this really because there's too little time. I'm going to jump this. There are maybe one little thing here: beliefs, emotions, and actions.
You're okay. Yeah, you're okay.
Huh?
You don't have to jump.
No jump. Okay, then let me go back one, because this is really very important. I think this is the best. Aristotle, again, 300 BC. What's a good story? And he says it's just three things: pathos, something when you're saying that creates some kind of emotions, imaginations, feelings. At the same time, it has to appeal to the intellect. There has to be some reasoning behind it, some consistency, some structure, some logic. That's why logos. And the third one is ethos, which is about credibility. Who is saying this? Who is Vesela Tanaskovic, who is starting a movement in Serbia? What is her background? There has to be some credibility. She has her PhD, she has her, so this is something, and the combination of the three is a good story. And this has really not changed much since the times of Aristotle and Greek theater, which I, again, find very interesting. And I'm just talking about the Western world. I mean, I'm aware that I'm not from, it's stories have been all over the world, and they have certain principles, and they're really okay. And this is the thing you have to do. The first is, you have to, when you tell a story, there has to be some kind of a bang, some interest. You create instant, you capture the attention of your audience. It's called neural coupling. Then the audience begins to resonate somehow. And this is what I'm trying to do with my little talk with you. I hope I can get your attention, more intensely. Maybe you're getting into my thought process. Maybe you're resonating a bit more. This is what I want to do. So I'm trying to get you hooked into my idea. And then I want to create real enthusiasm. That'll be the peak. And it's okay, it's interesting. Okay, Ian is okay, it's interesting. But I mean, some of you maybe say, okay, it's just babbling away, nothing interesting. And some of you may say, wow, this is really getting interesting. So I want to create that peak. And then there's a resolution where I maybe can motivate you to, I don't know, buy my course, for example, for 46 euros, or buy these wonderful books like this one here. It's not my book. I'm doing advertisement for Carmine De Gallo, The Storyteller's Secret, TED Talks, Learning from Text, amazing book. Okay, so I'm really enthusiastic about storytelling, and I want to get everyone in the world into storytelling. Okay, so this is the thing that's the challenge for storytellers. And one thing, maybe in connection to your project, you have a real problem. Okay, this is a serious problem, and you have a dramatic question on your hand: pollution. And now there's a call to adventure. If you want to solve this is something pretty adventurous. Can you do it? Let's say in 5 years, can you change the story of Serbia? And that's the hero's quest. Yeah, this is what the Odyssey did, which Odysseus, his entire story was about this. And then there's the dramatic question is answered at some point. And in between, you have the transformation. You have the transformation of Serbia. And this is an amazing thing that has been going on and on and on in stories. This is the secret sauce of writing a bestseller novel. It's about how the hero gets transformed through all the difficulties and so on. And it's a very peculiar thing. We seem to turn to stories simply to watch how the characters fix their problems and transform themselves. So what you're doing is actually writing an incredible new story of Serbia. Amazing, another amazing book, by the way. Okay, and now we come to storytelling for the future. This is the last point. The 21st century uncertainties need completely new stories. And this is what your friend just said before. I mean, the uncertainty of the 21st century is a huge transformation from the hyper-local to the super-global. Hyper-local was the farmers and the hunters and gatherers who had tremendous knowledge about their local situation, and they were acting on that, and they had no notion of how their activities could affect the world. It didn't. Whatever they did, it didn't affect the world. But today, my local actions will have global impacts. And this is a completely different situation. And our biological mechanism has somehow not prepared us for this. We are not, for thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, we didn't know this. This is a very, very new thing. And I think, we can discuss about this. This is a key issue. How to create stories that makes us aware of this tremendous situation, that our actions, our small actions, will have an effect on the entire planet. And futures literacy, UNESCO has declared it as an essential skill of the 21st century. Think of that. Entire Australia, by the way, all schools in Australia have this now, futures literacy, and it's come to Austria as well. Austria, in Niederösterreich, they have the Pedagogic Academy has introduced futures literacy. Really, really good development, I must say. And here I have an interesting line, maybe I think this is an important slide as well. So storytelling is, telling something in a way that captures people's attention. Fine. But what are the effects? Now, there's a short-term effect. Let's say my presentation, it's very short-term. Novels, pitching, videos, TikTok, social media, movies, all of these have relatively short-term effect. Mid-term effect, and these are the gurus of marketing. They're using storytelling like hell, neuromarketing, limbic marketing, corporate storytelling, brand storytelling. This is much bigger effect, longer effect. They want to create a brand. Now, really long-term effect, like paradigmatic changes which changes norms, values, regimes, political ideas. What is our idea of the good life, for example? These are big changes. And this needs a different kind of skill. And for example, I have here some example like social idea, slavery is bad. This took a long time, a lot of discussion, but it changed extremely swiftly. Then scientific ideas, the Copernican worldview. Think of how long it took to really come to terms with that. our political ideas. Democracy is good. This is not an easy thing. In the Western world, it took at least 300 years to get this idea into society that democracy is something good. Or Germany, we need an energy transition. It's a big thing. So we have to be careful, or we have to be aware of, like, when we are telling a story, what is our time scale? How long, what is the big impact? And this is the, so paradigmatic changes, and this is the big challenge, Vessela, for you and artists, and for us, everyone, is how do we embed our new narratives in the fabric of society? This is a very difficult thing, because it has to somehow affect our collective models of thinking, our collective patterns of acting, institutional mindsets, and all of that. So it has to become part of society. And now a short definition, it's a very important one, I think, sociological view of stories. So the practice of sharing stories is a core element of human culture and forms a society's beliefs and identity. And the second one, in a sociological sense, a narrative is a shared image, yeah, it's important, shared image that has the ability to transport and consolidate collective values, emotions, and standards. And meaning, that's a very, very big thing. It's about coherence, which means a sense of comprehensibility. Purpose makes sense of core goals, aims, and direction. And significance, it's about a sense of life's inherent value. If you get all these three together, you have meaning. And I mean, there are different definitions of meaning, but this is the one I find particularly interesting for creating such stories. So storytelling is something brains do naturally and implicitly, but storytelling pervades the entire fabric of human societies and cultures. And that is the big challenge. The challenge is to create shared stories in the social context, like as if there were patches in a quilt. So you weave together those little stories with those coherent values into the fabric of society, and then it really becomes a part of society. Then it becomes, and then it can become a compass of orientation, like the entire history of myths, and so this was all, myths were nothing, but they were incredibly powerful vehicles of transmission of values, orientation, knowledge, and in fact also knowledge. So I will jump this. Homer's Odyssey and Ilias, by the way, they were used to really tie together the entire Mediterranean. It was consciously deployed to create identity. And very interesting, recently I'm reading another amazing book. Odyssey had, like, the knowledge of the time, like agricultural knowledge, like medical knowledge, was also inscribed in the myths. It was like a really fascinating vehicle of entire society. Okay, now some short examples, which will, to round it up. Siena, I mean, future storytelling for the future is not new. 14th century, if you go to Siena, in the Tower of Siena, you have these frescoes. They're called allegories of the effect of good governance. Allegories of the effect of good governance in the 14th century. Think of that. And it's a huge fresco, which is showing what is good governance and what is bad governance. Think of that, 13th century. Next example, John F. Kennedy. His speech, which made an American land on the moon, was meticulously thought out. And there is a study by NASA, 18,000 pages of NASA archives, which uncover JFK's speech strategy that inspired the moon landing, which was an amazing thing. So storytelling is a very, very powerful tool. And by the way, you can see this, it's on YouTube. It's an amazing thing. And it looks like, he just, spoke like, out of his, like as if he just came up with the talk yesterday. No, I think he took months to prepare for this talk. This is something which completely transformed my life, my research in Brazil. It's a city called Curitiba, which was going down the drain, economically, ecologically, socially. Then it came up with a very, with a mission to transform itself, and it had one story, one narrative. We want to become the ecological capital of Brazil, which they became. It's the greenest city of South America, one of the most sustainable cities in the world. So it was a radical story of transformation, but it goes back to one particular narrative. Singapore. They want to become a city in a garden. And this is I don't know if you know this hotel. Right at the back of the hotel, you see the background. They could have built a huge real estate thing, best kind of location. What they built was a gigantic garden for $1 billion. This is quite a remarkable thing. And there was a conference while I was there last time. It was called "Can You Love a Smart City?" And there was a quotation from Lewis Mumford: "Forget the damned motor cars and build the cities for lovers and friends." And this is the very technocratic city of Singapore is actually thinking how to make the city a lovable place. And this is completely new kind of narratives. And also the car light city. Since February 2018 in Singapore, there is no more, a new car would only replace an old car. So there's no rise of numbers of cars. Think of that. And the narrative is called the car light city. Medellin, the final story. This is a city which really made me cry. It was the most dangerous city of the world in 1993, and in 2013 it started to get all the prizes a city can get for being the most innovative city of the world. And this tremendous transformation was triggered by a professor of mathematics who became the mayor, Sergio Fajardo, and the narrative of the city was from fear to hope. Medellin, for 50 years of violencia, civil war, it's unimaginable the amount of violence that happened there. Someone comes up and gives people hope. And it was not just words, it was real transformation. The transformation was weaving the fragments of the city together. It was called social urbanism. And then they started to build these spectacular libraries into the most excluded places. This is Santo Domingo, which was the most dangerous district in the most dangerous city of the world. And Sergio Fajardo said, this place will get the most beautiful library of the continent. And so education became the windows into a completely new future. And that's where you see the power of imaginaries of the future, architecture, and literally everything. And education was about creating hope. And hope is probably the biggest energy of humanity. And I would say that, whatever we do, we have to create hope somehow or other. That will trigger very, very deep emotions. And the need, remember that the future cone, hope is to be in that center, in that calm center where you can thrive, you can be creative, you can raise your children and so on. So that's the most important thing. And to conclude, that's the diagram. Where is the current carrying me? Can I change my course? And remember this diagram. And finally, I did a little art piece here, which shows, goal for the future. Everything I said, I'll send this to you. So how to weave it into the fabric of society. You have to have the goal. You have to have a basket of images. It has to be like very interesting. It has to be motivating. It has to have a scientific basis, and it has to create hope. It has to create collective purpose. From chaos to order, you have to create orientation. You have to create meaning, and then you transform Serbia.
Beautiful, Ian. Beautiful. Thank you so much. No, really, it's a lot to take in. So I know that we'll need some time to process everything. But if you're open to Q&As,
of course, for sure. Shall I take my presentation out, or
but you can maybe leave this so we can go back.
Maybe if someone wants to go back or something.
Yeah. Do we have? Do you want my questions? No, they're asking like, okay, you asked them what their course is, and like, what is your course course of action?
My course of action?
Yeah.
You mean what I am doing? My action part, like, let's see.
Yeah. Remember the little boat in the sea, the paper boat that slides?
Yeah.
This one. Yeah. Can I change my course, and what's my course?
Well, mm,
He probably already changed his
So many
course.
times.
And which one is now?
Yeah.
I'm in the education in the education sector, and my job is to inspire people. So the change of course that I did now, really focusing on future. This is something, and I'm creating different kinds of settings around this whole thing about future and stories. So maybe it's a response to this dramatic situation of the world, that we really need new imaginations of the future. Maybe that's the thing that I'm trying to change a little bit.
Okay, after sad te dramatične situacije, what about it's okay, it's a dramatic situation in world, okay, but do you think that we can change the dramatic situation in, okay, we can, but how many years needs to go on to change just a little bit of this kind of the air, probably in Belgrade, because it's more,
Do you hear? Did you hear? No.
Yeah.
How many years we need approximately? Yeah.
Koliko
Yeah.
nama godina, na primjer, treba sad da promenimo vazduh da bude sličan Beču u Beograd? Koliko?
Yeah, like how many, like she's asking, like, what do you think, how many years we would need to change the air for, let's say, in Belgrade to be similar to the air in Vienna, to fix the air pollution, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, of course, this is a very technical question. I'm not expert on air pollution, but I wanted to tell you something very interesting. New Delhi has one of the worst air polluting cities in the world. And they had, I mean, I just met someone a few months ago, and she was in Delhi, and she said that there's a dramatic change in the quality of air in Delhi. They did all kinds of things, and it's already affecting. I couldn't believe it, because I know how Delhi is. So it can happen pretty fast, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I like the more we look here, for example, in Serbia, the more I dive into the subject. For me, it can happen pretty dramatically, like basically overnight, as long as there is this political consensus, and we do act systematically to, let's say, either close entirely the 8 coal power thermal power plants that we have that are polluting the air. The coal is the worst, or that we gasify them, so switch from coal to gas, which is also available, or invest in the chimneys filters because they don't even have any. Yeah, so I believe for as long as we are able to build this momentum and create this political consensus and understanding of what needs to be done, that it can be done overnight, like it can be fixed overnight, basically. Yeah. But yeah, political consensus. Yeah.
As I said last night, we have a politics there that are totally anti-Serbian to us. Well, that's true from communism to today. And one of also things, the most
The curse.
a curse, yes. The most biggest curse of the Jews is I wish you to have and then not to have. And that's what happened with communism. People had good lives, and then came 90s, poor, and everything stopping. Then 2000s, every fabrics are selling. We're beginning to be cheap workers for Europe or USA, and like we're what China used to be. Now we in the center of, may I say, Balkan or Europe. And
Did you hear? Were you able to hear?
Yeah.
And I think somebody has something of that, and I think it's a bigger plan from someone than we can think about. It's maybe some theory, but I don't know.
Yeah. But I don't know if you can go back to the first slide where you showed the four pieces of storytelling, creating this narrative, like creating the political consensus first, defining what it is, and this is what like I really like that slide because it shows clearly what are our steps to do as artists, as scientists, as activists. Yes, exactly that. It's like this first consensus about the local problems because currently in Serbia we don't have that. Like the political parties and the people in power do not want to even acknowledge that we have the problem with air pollution, even though you can use satellite data and basically any app to see that we do have trouble with air pollution. So this is the first establishment of the local consensus on the local problems, which we don't have. And then it's this powerful agents of change, which I see you to be, and the scientists and the activists that are actually taking part in making the change. And then
But
working on
also I would say
creating.
about television program. You know,
Iz
you
naše
have
ne možemo razumjeti što mnogo, možemo da slikamo slike koje su dosta onako upečatljive,
Da,
pomeraju
baš
situaciju,
To je to.
terete razmišljanje.
To je.
yes, but
Znači,
can we
možemo
start
iz
with
našeg
television?
Baš tako.
ugla da uradimo.
Because
Tako.
television would give
It's like
space for those
because
activities, not only
Christina was saying
reality
that we like that they as artists can only contribute as much by painting powerful paintings, and I believe that this is because you were saying more as if it's not relevant, but it is so relevant because I think if we each of us plays their role together collaboratively, we will push the change. But this is each individual's role is super important. Your role is super important. Your role is super important. Your role, like all of our roles are individually and collectively important in building towards the change momentum.
You know, but I would again return to television because a lot of people watch television and they're living in some small towns where they don't know anything, and they're watching. I don't know if Professor knows about reality programs in our country. It's a very big problem. It's very important because
reality
people
programs
are
are
watching
huge
that,
issue here,
and instead of we don't have children programs anymore.
Agreed.
We don't have science program, art program. If somebody gets a space about art, or it's very short, it's very naive, it's totally stupid. I watched really.
Agree.
No,
No.
yes, you need to pay
There is
that
this
and-
media, like what they are trying to translate is that there is this issue within the national broadcasting agencies and national media in even showcasing anything of the culture or anything of the science. That there is just basically no space for science and culture on the local national TV stations or local national media. And it's all gone to this like very what are they called reality shows and this like very kind of BS culture, yeah. This is what they see is one of the biggest issues, yeah.
Maybe two things I could from my experiences from the world. Two things. One is there is a thing called alternative media now. Like people can create digital media. I mean, entire Brazil, for example, has built this incredible alternative media.
This is what we are doing now. Yeah, exactly.
So you can do it. Yeah, that's it. And the second one is it's better to think not on a national level, but on a much smaller scale, and to create a pilot project, to create a powerful case, which once it's working, like, you're doing interesting things. Artists are coming together. They have transformed maybe a village. It can be a small town or something where interesting things are happening. And that could become a crystallizing point where people would become aware. Because I think intrinsically, people are looking for such things. So that could be an approach. One, a beacon, like a stunning story that something great is happening somewhere.
Like a beacon of hope, something like yeah.
Beacon of hope. Yeah.
Like yeah, direction. This is I honestly believe this is something that Serbian people or generally people in the Balkans need desperately. They need this good story that will just move and align them towards a hope, like this beacon of hope. But I believe also that we globally need that for climate crisis that we are in. That generally we do.
No, I was just saying,
Thank you so much. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just I was going to say about, I was in Transylvania, and there is a village called Viskri. And Viskri is a village where Prince Charles has bought a plot of land, and where he's renovating old farmhouses and bringing back like the old architecture. But at the same time, he's building gardens for the future. So it's all about food production of the future. And when I left the farmyard and we went around on the street, on the village street, I just couldn't believe my eyes. We went into a barn, and it was a world-class slow food restaurant in the middle of a village in Transylvania, and the best kind of food, local production. So Viskri, Prince Charles, this thing, and now slow food coming up, and all kinds of new things coming up there, and in a village in Transylvania. So these are the things that they're possible, and we should do more of them.
Agreed. Thank you so much for the talk. I see everyone enjoyed, and we will definitely be talking more of everything that you've mentioned. And I ask you to please send us the slides so we can go through them individually. I'll send it to each of the participants. And we are now coming close to 1 hour of our live broadcast. Thank you so much, Ian. And I've really enjoyed this talk.
With you. Good luck. And and hope to see you soon sometime in Serbia.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.